Hi everyone, we're going to continue with our reading of the Heart of Understanding, the commentary on Prajnaparamita, the Heart Sutra. And this commentary is by Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's so beautiful. So we're going to just continue with this. One of the reasons why I'm reading this out was this text was something that Tibetan students, when we grew up in the boarding school in India, we would read this text during our prayer session every day. And it always fascinated me, but I didn't understand it fully. And when I really started applying this in my life, it was a game changer for me. It really created so much more space to relax and enjoy and cultivate resilience as well as compassion. And during these times of profound chaos and deep suffering, I really feel like we could use the wisdom and the wisdom in texts like this. And I pray and hope that you actually do the reflection, because none of this is effective unless we apply it in our own lives. And then, when we question, we investigate. And so this is a Buddhist investigation, basically, Buddhist science investigation. And so last chapter we read was about the emptiness, what is it empty of? Buddha said that, first we looked at our observation and everything seems to be dependent on each other when we really looked deeply. And yet Buddha says it's empty. And so what was that empty about? And then Buddha talked about how what it really is empty about is empty of the self, independent self. And especially when the reality is there is no independent self when we investigate it, yet the culture, especially the Western paradigm, lives in this profound misunderstanding of the reality as something that's permanent, solid, that has independently arose. And in that pursuit, we're trying to prevent death, and aging, and all these uncontrollable facts of life. And then we suffer as a result of this unbearable addiction to controlling what we cannot control. And so this helps a lot in really investigating, if it's a fact, if I come to the realization that we are all interdependent, and then I'm assuming that I exist alone, and I'm feeling so lonely and depressed and anxious and panicking and all of that, then there is some sort of a discrepancy. And it's like something has gotten out of perspective. And so how can I bring that perspective in its place so I can see things more clearly and then respond more effectively and appropriately to life? And that's my prayer and hope that that would be beneficial. So the fourth reading we're going to do, the fourth, it's small, but I'm just going to call them chapters. I don't know what they're called. So the way of understanding. So the way of understanding. After this penetration, he overcame all pain. Penetration means to enter something, not just to stand outside of it. When we want to understand something, we cannot just stand outside and observe it. We have to enter deeply into it and be one with it in order to really understand. So here, when we practice mindfulness, and there is instruction to just give a space and then observe it, which is really wonderful, because it gives us a kind of a gap between the emotions and the thoughts and everything that's arising and the kind of a witness that stays here. But that's one aspect of the meditation. And then once you have that kind of understanding and a little bit of unbiased third party sort of gap, then what here it's being recommended is you penetrate single-mindedly into, this is another kind of meditation, is an analytical meditation. You look into one door, and then you cut through, you penetrate it until you get to the bottom of that. And then that's one way of understanding a reality. So this is being recommended here. So we have to enter deeply into it and be one with it in order to really understand. And if you want to understand a person, we have to feel their feelings, we have to suffer their sufferings and enjoy their joy. Penetration is an excellent word. The word comprehend is made out of Latin roots com, which means together in mind, and prehende, which means to grasp it or pick it up. To comprehend something means to pick it up and be one with it. There is no other way to understand something. If we only look at the sheet of paper as an observer standing outside, we cannot understand it completely. We have to penetrate it. We have to be a cloud, be the sunshine, and be the logger. And if we can enter it and be everything that isn't in it, our understanding of the sheet of paper will be perfect. So there is an Indian story about a grain of salt that wanted to know just how salty the ocean is. So it jumped in and became one with the salt, with the water of the ocean. In this way, the grain of salt gained perfect understanding. We're concerned with peace and we want to understand the Soviet Union. So we cannot just stand outside and observe. We have to be one with a Russian citizen in order to understand his feelings, perceptions, and mental formations. We have to be one with him or her in order to really understand. And here, think about Trump, right? We want to put him outside as some sort of a monster. And so here, the Buddhist investigative challenge is you become one with him so you can understand him. And then from that place, maybe we won't be as hateful and righteous and polarized once we understand how he came to be, right? So this is Buddhist meditation, to penetrate, to be one with, in order to really understand. Any meaningful work for peace must follow the principle of non-duality, the principle of penetration. In the Sutra of Four Foundations of Mindfulness, the Buddha recommended that we observe in a penetrating way. He said we should contemplate the body in the body, the feelings in the feelings, the mental formations in the mental formations. Why did he use this kind of repetition? Because you have to enter in order to be one with what you want to observe and understand. Nuclear scientists are beginning to say this also. When you enter the world of elementary particles, you have to become a participant in order to understand something. You can no longer stand and remain just as an observer. And this talks more about the double split experience, right? Experiment, right? And also Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty comes here. Yeah. So anyways, you can no longer stand and remain just as an observer. Today, many scientists prefer a word participant to the word observer. In our effort to understand each other, we should do the same. A husband and wife who wish to understand each other have to be in the skin of their partner in order to feel. Otherwise, they cannot really understand. And how true is that, really? In the light of Buddhist meditation, love is impossible without understanding. You cannot love someone if you do not understand him or her. If you don't understand and you love, that is not love, it is something else. Avalokita's meditation was a deep penetration into the 5 satskandhas, or the aggregates, seeing deeply into the rivers of form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness he discovered the empty nature of all of them. And suddenly he overcame all pain. All of us who would like to arrive at that kind of emancipation will have to look deeply in order to penetrate the true nature of emptiness. It's so beautiful, no? So here, this brings up the value of doing shadow work, the soul work, the inner child work. And a lot of the inner child work is related with, feeling the feels, because we have not completely felt them, and because we were not allowed to feel how we felt, because there was always somebody who, tried to control it, or, whose feelings affected ours, so we couldn't express it, especially our caregivers, early caregivers, so stuff like that, right? And we're just looking at this one lifetime. And if you're a believer in cause and effect, for people like us, we believe that we've been doing this eons of life, and there's no wonder how really far, deeply we have forgotten. So it must have taken a really, really long journey to forget something so deeply, right? So I believe in all of this, the journey of forgetfulness and the journey of remembrance as well. And so that's the beauty of the text. And then also, the example of husband and wife. I'm married. I would, my deepest prayer all my life is that I was a retreatant, that I don't want to be in a relationship. And no wonder I don't want to be in a relationship, because I pretty much suck at it. And there's so much confusion to unpeel, and layers of separation and misunderstanding that I've accumulated. And when we're in the relationship, and that's challenged, right? And there's such a judgment and criticism, and all that comes out of myself not being able to sit with my confusion, and then I project it on the person that I love, and then make their life miserable as well, right? And then wanting him to live the life I live, instead of understanding him from his perspective, right? So all of these are so relevant. The Dharma teaching is like it permeates everything, and if we can, kind of slow down enough to see how neurotic patterns, or if you talk about neuroscience words, it's like the default network, right? And from the inner child work, it's the inner child with the wounded child, right? It's not a functional adult, and so so here we are kind of becoming more functional, in a sense, by having this perspective. And the part of adulting and growing up is taking responsibility, right? Yeah. And being accountable for our own thoughts and feelings and emotions and actions and speech and the rest, instead of always kind of needing somebody to blame, right? Even though they might have played a role, but they are co-factors, they're not the main factor, right? And so anyways, and that's a reflection on this, and I hope that you find it beneficial. Okay, thank you so much.